Hello and welcome to Turkish Football. I'm your host Ozan Günçe. A lot to talk about once again on our program. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you do join our YouTube channel as well, Turkish Football, and make sure you put those alarm bells on for those exclusive interviews. Of course, we've already had one with Bushra Kenet, Galatasaray's goalkeeper, which you can see on our Facebook and YouTube page right now. And we're going to show a little sneak peek if you haven't later in tonight's program. As well as a very exciting other exclusive content that's coming up next week, which we will reveal and give you a little inside information on shortly. So before we get to what's in store for us on our program, I'd like to invite Furkan Aydın over to the program, who will be just seconds away. There he is. Furkan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Welcome, Oz.
Thank you. No, it's great teaming up as always. Unfortunately, Mehmet Öztürk, he is joining us in a way. He's our regie for tonight. So Chucky's unfortunately not with us this week. But all in all, it's very exciting and there's a lot to talk about. So we'll get straight into it. There was a derby. There were a couple of draws, frustrated teams. And there was a team just bouncing back, doing business as usual. So we'll get started, I guess, with the derby. With Mems is on, is he?
Mems is joining.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes,
That's
sorry,
my
guys.
bad. There we
Just
go.
a tad late.
So I just decided to kick Mems out without any consultation. There he is. Mehmet, good to have you on as well. How are you?
Not bad. How are you? Sorry, just a bit of running around. Run a bit late.
No, of course. You're the regie and a pundit tonight, are you? You're the versatile player of the team. There we go.
I'm the Neji Busalov
tonight. That's marvelous. All right. Well, welcome, boys. Welcome. So the derby, very exciting stuff. Let's get straight into it. In fact, I'll come to you, Mems, first with the Fenerbahçe Beşiktaş at Kadıköy. What an exciting match and a familiar face as well popping up when required for one of the teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask any of the teams what result they'd won, I think you'd see a 0% chance of a draw because this has basically just pushed both teams out of the championship race completely. So no team has benefited from it. It is worthwhile mentioning Önder Karaveli, so Beşiktaş's caretaker coach. He has got his fourth point in 2 games out of 6. It's fourth point out of 6, so in 2 games. So it is considered, a fairly good result for him, I'd say, coming a draw at Kadıköy on his second game. However, on the other end, Pereira, so Önder Karaveli there, Pereira, on the other hand, at his expense, Fenerbahçe dropped the points. I mean, once again, a average performance, Beşiktaş was ahead about almost the whole time, I'm going to say. Fener went ahead twice, but not much can be done. And as you said, a familiar face in Joseph de Souza scored a double against his old side, and he celebrated. So he was definitely the center of attention tonight. But yeah, so just hours after the game, Pereira did... we'll say cop the sack. It was announced that he wasn't going to continue, and there are a few candidates for his spot already, and it looks like Fenerbahçe and the TFF will be butting heads once again for the candidate.
Yeah, I've heard about the assistant coach. I think there's a decline there from the federation side, or at least the rumors suggest. So it might not be that straightforward in terms of getting. Yeah. Stefan Kuntz's assistant. Is that right, folks?
Yeah, and I was just going to make mention there was an announcement from Hamit Altıntop himself just earlier where he said that they will not be, letting Kenan Koçak go. So, and there's actually a very, very fresh news of a new coach who is familiar with the league, who is familiar with one of these teams that featured on Sunday, Beşiktaş's old manager, Slavan Bilic. And there's a rumor that if Ali Koç approves it, he's going to be coming to Istanbul on the 3rd of January to sign the paperworks and take over for the second half of the season. So stay tuned on that. Going back to the derby, Mems did make mention. Joseph de Souza was actually his first time in his career where he scored a brace, which happened to be against his former side. And like Mems said, he was a bit excited to the much of the hate of a lot of Fener fans at the stadium. And just a couple of other stats here now. This is more so in the rivalry in the general state. Fenerbahce has now not beaten Beşiktaş for 4 games. It's their biggest, it's their longest drought since 1990 and 1993. And Fenerbahce Beşiktaş is the most drawn fixture in the Super Toto Super League history. No other fixture has seen as many draws as this one. And funnily enough, the next 2 fixtures that are on that list is Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, and Beşiktaş and Galatasaray. So says something about how competitive it gets when these teams meet. In terms of the football side of things, I felt usually we get a lot of people a bit not so happy with the football displayed. I think there was a lot of chances for both teams. So it was a good game to watch from a neutral side of point. And Ferhan's making mention of the Bilic comments I made earlier. His football might work with this Fener squad. Let's see, because I do believe it's a stacked squad. There's a lot of options. And Slavan Bilic did play. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys, but a 4-3-3 system, which he favoured with a striker up top with Mario Gomez. So and maybe have that sort of number 10 in Mesut Özil. So, boys, on the topic of Slavan Bilic and how he's managed his former squads, your opinions?
Yeah, I'll probably go first on this one. I don't see a negative in it. He's probably going to be one of the best candidates to come at this time of the year. It is a problem in Turkish football, and it happens to our big teams as well. 2 weeks ago to Beşiktaş, today to Fener. And so bringing someone like Slavan Bilic at this time of the year, I think would be a positive move. Will he be able to stand the pressure that especially is at Fener, having not won a trophy for years? Will he be able to withstand that pressure past one season? Given Ali Koç's track record, I say probably not, because the Fener fans can be quite ruthless. So yeah, that's
any big team fans, really.
Yeah.
The expectations are so high. What I'll say my 2 cents on Bilic. He reportedly was the coach of Fenerbahce before Vitor Pereira. I don't know if some of the viewers were aware of that, but a couple of journalists in Turkey, well-respected journalists, did say that the agreement was made verbally, but not contractually. So I think at the very last minute, at the time, Bilic's team in China did not let him go. So Bilic was meant to be Fener's coach 6 months ago anyway. I guess if he does come on board, it'll be a belated sort of appointment. In terms of how he'll go, I personally think he'll do better than Pereira. I believe. I'm not saying that because of the poor string of results now, but more so because I think he'll bring a bit of much-needed consistency to the side. I mean, the amount of, and we've all said it on the shows before, haven't we, boys? Like the central pairing in defense, the central pairing in midfield, the most 2 crucial areas of a team, keep changing. I mean, I think in the last derby, Zaitz and Crespo were the midfielders. Is that right, Fuchs? I mean, I can't keep up anymore.
Yep, you're right. And I think the biggest point I agree on there is the formation, because we saw a heavy persistence from Vitor of playing 3 central defenders, which time and time again showed it just didn't work with this squad. And like you said, now another thing that Fener has to really consider in this position is if they're bringing in Slavan for a half a season, let's be honest, there's quite a big point difference from the top. So realistically, are they really in the title chance anymore? What are they really bringing him in for? Are they bringing him in for the future? So they really need to define whoever comes in, whether it be him or any other manager, what do they want to achieve in the next 6 months?
Yeah, well said. I think it's a case of either going down that path, or do we go with someone like local, like a Ismail Kartal, for example? I'm not saying that will happen, but do we go down that path just to sort of rebuild and I guess gain respect among the other competitors in the league until you start off with a clean slate, I guess, in the off season? So in the comments, suggest who you think should be the coach or will be the coach of Fenerbahce. We're looking forward to your comments as well, to all of our viewers. So that's the derby. It was exciting. 4 goals, 2 goals each, and another draw was in Seyrantepe, Galatasaray. The downward spiral continues for Fatih Terim's men, unfortunately, from a Galatasaray perspective, but not so unfortunate from a Başakşehir perspective, especially with Emre Belözoğlu at the helm. They've frog leaped and leaped week by week, all these teams, and now they're in 3rd spot. I mean, where do you sort of start with this result? On one end, there's a team in horrible form, and quite the opposite with the other, isn't it, Fuchs?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to quickly make mention of that comment. There was a comment just on our topic earlier. If Mems can just bring it up again in regards to who Fenerbahce should bring in. There's mention of Şenol Güneş, the former national team manager, who's obviously now unemployed, and that we should make no exceptions. Don't trial with less experienced managers of the likes of Ismail Kartal. So he makes an interesting point there. I just feel, I don't know how much Şenol Güneş is really invested into the Fenerbahce project because of past experiences. So that's one thing both sides are a bit sour about. So I'm not sure how that would work in terms of getting...
Well, at least of that caliber, perhaps? Of that caliber.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Look, I feel, whoever's going to fill in that role again, the most important thing is the future project. Now, going back to Seyrantepe and the 1-1 game again, and I feel like Fatih Terim's presence on the pitch is, really being missed at the moment. It's I think now 6 games that Gallows win this in the league, and the points difference is really, really catching up with them now. They're in the mid-table there. Emre Belözoğlu, again, another, I'd say, good result to get a point at Seyrantepe. Now in his 9 fixtures, 7 wins and 2 draws. An outstanding record since he's taken the helm. The first half saw where I feel at the start Başakşehir really came out and attacked. Okaka, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the goal, but an absolute terrific one, a scissor kick. It was his 9th of the season. And then in the latter stages of the first half, that man on screen, Mbaye Jagnet, he missed absolute sitters. He should have actually had a couple of goals next to his name. And it was found after the game, we found out he has an injury. So he's going to be absent for 1 month. So Halil will be, or Halil or Mustafa Mohamed in this instance will need to step in. Mustafa Mohamed did get the equaliser. An interesting point I wanted to make with this game, boys. I'm not sure if you saw the 90th minute. It was 1-1 at this stage. Galatasaray had just equalised, and they were in that bit of frenzy to get the winner later on. Halil Dervişoğlu was clear. He was running onto goal. He's brought down by Duarte, if I can pronounce his name right. The referee points not to the spot kick, but he points just outside of it, and he is given a yellow card. And he, in disappointment, he picks up the ball and kicks it in the air, and he's sent off pretty much instantly. The first yellow card is given, and then the second one is given, and he's sent off all within 10 seconds. Oz, I think we've talked about this one a few times now in the league.
Yeah, too often. I think it was a silly challenge, but at the same time, I think it was sort of fishing for it as well. That call, it got a bit heated as well. Like given the history between these sides, they've competed for a title before, and there's the whole Emre factor now. So it did get a bit heated, and it even carried on to I think post match as well. As far as I've seen,
Yeah, I think there was
reports and interviews.
There.
Yeah, with the ref.
Apparently the ref got involved.
Apparently calling someone from the bench a liar or something to that effect. It's a shame. I mean, if that is true, that's a shame because as much as we always support the referee side of things on this program when we need to, I guess, if you're an official, you need to be really careful with how you word things to players. So, so that's my 2 cents on that. It's a 1-1 draw, and Galatasaray needs to do something to turn these things around because as much as it's great for this man pictured and that man pictured as well, and Başakşehir's run towards Europa, perhaps even Champions League playoff continues, but Galatasaray, it's a long way back, we have to say.
It's no secret, but we actually asked Okaka if he could take this selfie and send it to us on the show. we thank him for the selfie. Now, going back to the incident, should he be suspended for his actions or reactions, we should say?
It's tough to say. I don't know. I mean, I think he could. Yeah, I think 1 match would be appropriate, perhaps. But it's hard to say. I mean, again, it comes back to the consistency thing because for things of similar nature in the past, we've had hefty fines and then we've had sort of the slap on the wrist. So it's very hard to answer the question.
Yeah. I definitely think some sort of punishment should be made because we really need to stamp this out of the game or out of our league.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to start somewhere, and this could be a good example. All right. That's the Galatasaray match, and I think Dennis Özgün also thinks that there should be suspension. Comment of a yes came in there. There it is. So let's move on, guys. Trabzonspor. So business as usual for the leaders. They've extended their lead. They're going very strong despite the Antalyaspor loss, Mem. So what do you make of this? Maybe it was just a sort of bump in the road, perhaps, last week.
Yeah, I mean, you rarely ever see a team win the league without any losses. Trabzon did really look like they were going to do it this year. Comparing them to the other, 19 teams, they really did look like they were going to do it. And I mean, Nuri Sahin, good manager, good start to his time. And, that was just a hiccup. And I mean, given Trabzon's nature, going back, in the years where they're always first, they drop that 3 points and then it just comes back. Everyone was a bit iffy. Would they not? And given Abdullah Havcı's track record with both Beşiktaş and Başakşehir in this regards, there was that big question mark. But they've proven today against runners-up this week, against runners-up Hatayspor that they're not joking around. I think they've called it a league already. It might be a bit early. That's a big call for me as well because I never do it this early. But I'm going to say they called it a league. Nakam is out. The big question also was when their older players are out, how would they perform? Nakam is out. Gervinho's out. 2 of those sort of the dynamic 4 are out. But it doesn't really matter for them. They've got their Yusuf Sarı, their Abdülkadir Ömür, Abdülkadir, the other Abdülkadir, I forget his surname right now. Parmak, that's the one. And everyone's performing. A good performance by Dorukhan as well. In all honesty, something we haven't seen in a few years now. So a top performance from everyone. I think it's a team and Giannini in that regards. And I think it's just that thing where, they're a champion team. They're sticking up for each other. One player plays bad. The other one stands up and plays well for him. This man on screen has been, amazing this season.
He's been a good buy, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Furkan, I actually want to ask you, what do you think about, talking Trabzonspor now, what do you think about any other team's chances in the league now with this massive gap in between?
Yeah, look, and if you can bring that last graphic on screen again, I just wanted to point out the plays there. So you've got Giannini, Cornelius, in the background, Bakasetas and Hamsik. So I think you could call that a Fab Four as well, in terms of their impact this season. Yeah. And Limbs, you've said it, like you really hit the nail on the head at the moment. Look, a team, Hatay is third place, and the way they beat them on the weekend, quite comprehensive. There could have been much more goals. I think with the other big Istanbul teams currently struggling and not really mounting any sort of resistance, I think Konya's been pulling up really well. They've actually just jumped over to third spot. But these teams, I think, over the duration of the season, won't really be able to follow suit. So the team who I actually think is probably second in line is Başakşehir at this stage.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can probably maintain that, but obviously there's a 13-point difference, I believe, to Başakşehir. So it's a massive gap, and it would mean Trabzonspor would have to start going on this losing streak, and we can't really see that happening. We sort of tried to see, after last week, can it really start something? And what we're seeing this year with Trabzon, which I think is going to really be hard for them to drop points, is I think they've sort of created a fortress at home.
Yeah.
And with the backing of their own supporters, they're getting sold out games, and there's a great ambience right now, and I think it's a good time to be a Trabzon fan.
Yeah, most definitely, and we've seen videos of post-match celebrations where players are asked to come back on the field from fans, so that unity is really strong, as you've said, Furks and Mems. The current ladder, Trabzon 42 points, Konya second with 33, so 9-point gap between Trabzon and Konya. Başakşehir now on goal difference third, Hatay fourth. Hatay have lost 3 of their last 4 matches also, side note. So some alarm bells going off there for Ömer Erdoğan's men. They're a good side, and we've seen examples of that this season. But just in a poor run of form. So good on to Trabzonspor, winning 2-0 there. Comfortable leaders, and job definitely half done. And prediction-wise, probably more than that. They're sort of really on course to be champions. So we're going to slowly start wrapping up the Super League side of things. We'll just go around the grounds. We did mention Konya. We'll go to a photo here between Volkan Demirel and Caner celebrating a goal. Now, you might think, hang on, is Volkan playing again? No, he's coaching Fatih Karagümrük. Some of you might be already aware, of course, but they did win 1-0 away to Göztepe, who having issues of their own, really, near the bottom of the ladder. But Fatih Karagümrük bouncing back after a couple of poor results, and hence why Fariola left, I guess. So he was celebrating the only goal there in his mid with Caner, who scored a cracker of a goal. So good start to the former Fenerbahce goalkeeper and goalkeeper coach. And then Konya, we mentioned, they've gone 4 points clear of third spot and winning with a late goal from Ender Çekici. 1-0 over Antalya, who, let's be honest, you would be feared to verse, especially nowadays when they've just beaten Trabzonspor last week. So good on Konya there as well. They're playing some good football as well. So let's look at the upcoming. We'll look at the table first, just to go over it real quick, and then the upcoming fixtures. And there's the top half of the table. We've mentioned the top 4 already. Fenerbahce at 5th. Bülent Soma says, who do you think will take the job at Fener? Yeah, so it was discussed earlier, and we'd like to ask you, actually, Bülent, if you want to suggest a name, and to all of our viewers. Şenol Güneş's name popped up from another comment earlier, and then we said that Slavan Bilic might take over at the helm. So looking forward to your comments there about who you think can take over. There's the top half. Let's have a look at the bottom half of the table. Obviously, Beşiktaş, which is in 9th there, Fener in 5th, Galatasaray 11th, I mean, they haven't won a game in their last 5, as you can see. So that's really alarming. Who's been the biggest sort of? I'm not going to ask the question to you boys in terms of like who's been the biggest disappointment. I guess you could say any of the 3 big teams, but who's been punching above their weight? Mems, I'll come to you first and Foots.
Punching above their weight. That's caught me off guard. So I think Hatay. I'm not going to say Hatay because Hatay did this last year. I'm probably going to say Konya. Because yes, we did see Konya in the top half last year. But they weren't as sort of dominant as Hatay. Hatay's been dominant ever since they moved into the Super League. And I also want to mention Adana Demirspor. I think they've picked up, dramatically.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll probably have to agree with Mems's first call. Konya Sport is definitely probably the biggest surprise this year. And just a stat on Konya Sport, 33 points in their first 17 games is their best ever start to a league campaign. And we're talking about a team, 12 months ago, it was struggling for relegation. It had coaches departing almost weekly at times. And, they've sort of created an Eastern European connection there. They've got Albanians and Bosnian players. And I think they found something. They've got a young manager there as well. So, they've solidified second position. And maybe just to answer, I know you didn't ask the question, but as the biggest disappointment, now obviously, like you said, the big Istanbul teams are probably going to stand out. But if we go to that second half page again, I'm going to say Kasımpaşa because that's one team that's usually, round about in the mid-table. And I must admit, it's one team that I could never understand how they'd remain, keep not get relegated with such little support. And they just seem to find the right players and maintain that. So them being in last spot is, really striking. So let's see if they can bounce back. They've definitely got the funds because, over the years, they've really sold, made big name players and sold them off. So Kasımpaşa, I'd say, as that
I'm going to say Göztepe and Altay are disappointments for me.
Yeah.
I mean, Altay started well, but given the support they have, you mentioned the lack of support for Kasımpaşa. Given the support that's coming from Izmir, I think that's a poor performance, especially from Göztepe.
And we waited so long for Izmir sides to come back to the Super League.
Exactly.
So we don't want to wait again with both of them getting potentially relegated. We don't want to see that. They're both historic clubs. Aren't they? So Bülent Sönmez says Bilic or Ismail. Yeah, so we did mention those names too. I guess it's sort of 2 paths, isn't it, Bülent? Do you spend big a little bit, or bigger, I should say, and go for Slaven Bilic, who, of course, reportedly did agree to come to Fener before Pereira was signed, or do you go for someone like Ismail Kartal, who didn't do too bad? I know he didn't win the league with Fener back in the day, but I think there was a Turkish Cup final in there in the second place. So, and he has done good things in the past as well. I think at Konya at one stage. Speaking of Konya, I'd like to take my hat off to İlhan Palut. I know that Furkan, you did mention him as the young coach there. He is a young manager, and he's really doing great things in Konya. He's found his form as well, because I think at Göztepe he was trying to play a football that wasn't really his style, as opposed to like how he went with Hatay at first. So I think he's gone back to that free-flowing attacking football, which I think shows in the results that most definitely. I believe we have a comment as well before we move on from Deniz Üzgün, which second, third league team would you boys want to see back in the Super League? What a great question. I'll come to you, folks, and then Mems, you can answer this as well.
Yeah, an excellent question. And it's actually one of the leagues I'd like to follow. Birinci League is always, quite intense. You usually have about the top 8-9 teams separated by about 3 points. Most years, I mean, this year's not too different at the moment. I think Ümraniye's in top spot. I think the biggest team for me, aside from Bursaspor, who have been recently relegated, obviously they're a massive city and a massive supporter base. I'd like them to obviously come back and add that colour. A team that I'd really have wanted for years is Sakaryaspor, another massive supporter base.
Yeah.
And they've been sort of punching, the last couple of years, and come from the lower leagues. Kocaelispor is another massive club with a massive fan base. How about yourself, Mems?
Yeah, I mean, you took that out of my mouth in Sakaryaspor. So I was actually following. There was one phase where I was following Sakaryaspor as a team because of their fan base, and they had just missed out on relegation to Birinci League. It would have been 2 years ago. They lost it to Afşehirspor, who then ended up relegating again. So they're in the same league, and both teams are playing for championship now. But I'd love to see Sakaryaspor in the Super League. I think they've got the best fan base together with Bursaspor, the best support that's not in the Super League.
Yeah. And
what about yours, Anavi?
I want to see a team back from the capital, at least one team, like Ankaragücü or Gençler. I don't mind. I think given that it's the capital of the country, I think at least one team should be there, and they've got fan bases, both the teams. Is that right? I mean, I think Ankaragücü might.
Ankaragücü has a bit more.
Yeah. So there you go. Great question though from Deniz Özgün. So let's slowly move on to the Women's League, actually. So very exciting stuff. The Women's League did kick off, of course, this weekend. Some of you may have caught a glimpse of it or watched some of the matches. For myself, I watched the Beşiktaş-Fener game, which was great. A great watch. Beşiktaş triumphing 2-1 there. And they're off to a good start. They're the holders of the competition, of course. Galatasaray also winning, beating Sivas at home. So the format is that it's split into two leagues, both 12 teams each, and then the top 4 of both the leagues play quarterfinals, semis, and a final at the end of the season. And you can actually see the breakdown of that with our guest Bushra Kenet, the Galatasaray goalkeeper, on our page, YouTube and Facebook. It's already on the pages, and you can watch it there as well in full detail. It is a great interview. So, boys, what do you think has stood out for you the most in terms of the results, which we can get up on our page right now? Like, that's the Group A there. So you've got a massive win for Ankara there. Fatih Vatan, who's a good team, they beat Altay 5-2. What stands out for you, Mebs?
For me, again, nothing else could stand out apart from that 12-0 win for Ankara Büyükşehir Belediyesi. Fatih Vatanspor, Bushra Kenet's old team, actually. We did discuss that as well, with a comfortable win. And I think I did watch the Beşiktaş-Fener game as well, and it was interesting because Beşiktaş is that very, they're that they're that big side in the Women's League. But then, Fener's main player in Şemik officially got injured in the 5th minute. So then that sort of just put the team off, conceded 2 goals in 20 minutes, and then they actually picked up. So I think Fener has a point to prove in women's football this year. I think they put up a very good fight against the holding champions.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good game to watch, most definitely. And if we look at the ladder, obviously Ankara with that 12-0 win is going to be top of the table. There were no draws, but it's very early days. So there are the 12 teams in Group A. Fuchs, I'll come over to you for Group B. Again, what stands out for you with some of these results?
Yeah, I think we're all going to go back to Bushra Kenet and her mob. They were 3-0 winners against Sivasspor. So Galatasaray started off well after that sort of disappointing result in the friendly to Fener. Adana İdman over Trabzonspor, who were also debuting. Fatih Karagümrük winners. And a lot of fixtures which, people who may have little or know a little about the league. I think some expected results there. Couple of draws, 0-0, 1-1. And just going back to the earlier comment, obviously the standout performance or the game of the week was the derby between Beşiktaş and Fener. I just wanted to. I was pretty disappointed. I was watching that game also. I was disappointed in terms of attendance and how many people actually watched that game. Now, it being a derby, I compared it, I guess, with some more well-established sports in the women's game, like women's volleyball, the women's basketball, where derbies usually have big crowds. Obviously, they're in indoor arenas and smaller than a big stadium. But I was hoping that more people would attend. So I'm sure the league will probably have to try and push a bit more in terms of getting people to watch these games, because at the end of the day, these are two of the biggest clubs in Turkey. So was hoping, and hopefully over time, with more and more exposure, that these games are more well supported.
Yeah, I think it's early days, so it can only get better, right, Mems? And probably we can work something out, like doing double headers, like maybe the women's match just before the men's, like they do here in Australia. What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, Ozabi, like it's just going to come with time. I mean, this league's had a break of 2 years. Not to keep it going there, but as Bushra did mention in the interview as well, last year was more of a tournament format. So, it's had that break. Everyone's had that break off, So I think it's just a matter of time that we do get that. I just want to, just before we close off as well, I just want to talk about one game in the B group that I was sort of, I'll say disappointed about, was Ale Gespor. They hold some of the national team's biggest stars, and a 0-0 draw. I mean, Konak Belediyespor is also a strong team, but I think Ale Gespor, together with Beşiktaş, are the dynamos of the league. So having a look at the 11 just before the game started, I was like, this will be a lot of goals. Apart from Yağmur Uraz at Beşiktaş, all of the national team's forwards are at ALG, and including Ecem Cömert, who was also in the 11. But a 0-0 draw, so I was surprised at that.
Yeah, maybe a nervy start there for the Antep side, perhaps. Group A, you've got some fixtures here. Hatay, Altay, Fatih Vatan at home to Kocaeli, Fener host Antalya Sport. And in Group B, you've got Trabzon hosting Konak, Sivas, Karagümrük, ALG, who we just mentioned, at home to İlkadın Belediyesi, and Galatasaray is away to Dudullu. So that's all the fixtures, and we're going to slowly start wrapping it up. That was the Women's League. Now, in terms of special content, we mentioned at the start of the program, you can watch the Bushra Kenneth interview on our Facebook and YouTube pages right now. That's out. That's exclusive just for you on this page through Turkish Football. There is another exclusive content. Drum roll, please. We have an interview with an international referee, Hakan Anas, which is very exciting. We've had him over at the YouTube, the virtual studio, I should say, of Turkish Football, where we've learned a lot. It was it wasn't just an interview, was it, folks? Like we've actually learned a lot of things as we were discussing so many topics with the former international referee.
Yeah, I think we could have gone for much longer with Hakan Anas. So stay tuned. There's some interesting stories, not just from here, from Australia, but from overseas, and some well-known referees, actually. So he's got actual insight with well-known referees. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking forward to it. Mems, Forks, always a pleasure teaming up with you boys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Mems, great work on the versatile regie and pundit role that you took
Thank you.
On tonight's show. Hopefully our good friend Jackie will join us as well next week. But speaking of next week, we will be on, we'll be here, we'll be waiting for you, and we will be live as always. So we're looking forward to it, and look out for the posts and clues as a in terms of the Hakan Anas interview that we just mentioned. So that's coming to you very shortly. Let's throw it over to the little Bushra. Yes.
Just before we leave, for our viewers, we've actually got Super League action tonight. Match day, the next match day is kicking off. We've got big clashes. Galatasaray away to Adana Demir. Altay is hosting Trabzon, and Hatay, the following day, Hatay will be playing Konyaspor. So some top of the table clashes. So stay tuned for midweek Super League this week.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good mention, folks. And Dennis was going to say, it's a good show, boys, but don't forget about Eskişehir Sport. I was actually mention that team as well, because again, another household side with a massive fan base. Not doing that great in the lower tier, but hopefully they'll bounce back before long. So Eskişehir SS, as they're known. Yeah. So let's throw it over to Bushra Kenneth. A quick glimpse, a quick 1 minute video of what you're in store for with that video as we close off this week's program. That's it for us. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Thanks guys.
Turkish Futbol özel köşemize hoş geldiniz. Bugün programımızda Galatasaray'ın kalecisi Büşra Kenet var.
Galatasaray altyapısında başladım 2012 yılında. O içindeki o anki duygu, o anki sevinç tarifi olmaz bir sevinçti.
Fatih Vatanspor'da Ezgi Çağlar'la beraber oynadın. Ve aynı transfer döneminde sen Galatasaray'a, o da Fenerbahçe'ye transfer oldun. Bir muhabbet geçti mi aranızda o konuda?
Elbette ayrılıklar üzdü ama ikimiz de birbirimizin adına çok mutluyuz. En büyük destekçim ailem. Sonrasında yine en büyük destekçim dedem oldu. Fanatik bir Beşiktaşlı olmasına rağmen beni nerede görse cimbom cimbom deyip duruyordu. Onun vermiş olduğu motivasyonun verdiği gücü düşünerek sahaya çıkıyorum. Çünkü dedeme kendim içimde vermiş olduğum bir söz var. Bu sözü hem ona layık olabilmek adına öyle bahsedebilirim. Yani artık oyuncular kendilerini amatör bir çerçevede değil de profesyonel olarak bakmak durumuna girdiler. Sonuçta büyük kulüp çatısı altındasın. Yani taraftarı büyük, arması büyük. Hedefimiz şampiyonluk. İnşallah bu yolda da emin adımlarla yürüyoruz. O kupayı getireceğiz.